Welcome to the Forge Truth Podcast, where we are building great men as God defines greatness. Forge is a movement of men with a mission to help all men realize they are the deeply beloved, redeemed sons of the Most High God. I'm your producer, Zach, and I'm here to discuss the issues that affect men the most with our two hosts, Dr. Pete Alwinson, lifelong pastor and leader of Forge, and Jayson Quiñones, Bishop of Core Faith Church in Oviedo, Florida. Men, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here. Good to see you guys again. You know, here we go.
Yeah. One of my favorite times of the week is to be here with you guys.
Is that true?
It is.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, today
I feel energized after every one of these, honestly.
I love that.
You get some truth, finally, Bishop, that you could preach on Sunday, right?
I'm getting closer to the kingdom.
Well, today we have a special guest with us. Joining us remotely, it is Professor Anthony Esolen. He is the author of over 30 books, countless articles in both scholarly and general interest journals, an accomplished poet in his own right. He is probably most known for his acclaimed 3-volume verse translation of Dante's Divine Comedy, part of the Modern Library. It's widely considered the standard edition for students of Dante, which I personally find very impressive. His latest books are an annotated reading of St. John's Gospel, In the Beginning Was the Word, and No Apologies, Why Civilization Depends on the Strength of Men. Professor Esolen is a frequent speaker and lecturer at universities, institutes, and church and civic institutions. He received his BA from Princeton University, in case you've heard of that, and his PhD is from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He's currently the Distinguished Professor of Humanities at Thales College. Dr. Esolen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. And you've given us permission to call you Tony, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, there it is. My middle name is Anthony, but you guys can't call me Tony. You have to call me Dr. Al. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm Pete, and you're Tony, and Bishop, and Zach. It's great to have you. And wow, I mean, that is a book selection, isn't it, guys? I mean, over 30 titles, and you're an expert. Is that what you would say your expertise is in, Dante? You're a professor of humanities.
I'm a professor of humanities. For 25 years, I taught in a development of Western civilization program at a college that shall now remain nameless. Nameless in dark oblivion, let it dwell. I mean, open. Therefore, eternal silence be their doom. But for most of those years, I was very happy, and I taught with other professors in team taught courses, and we covered theology, philosophy, literature, history, and as much art as we could get in from about, say, 2000 BC to the end of the Renaissance.
Wow.
So anyway, but if you ask me what very specifically and very narrowly would be my field, it would be Renaissance literature. But my gosh, I've been teaching things that cover that range for more than a quarter century, and also I teach things past that range, so 19th century, 20th century literature mainly. But
that's fantastic.
Philosophy and theology.
Well, you know, and I think that's what sets No Apologies, your book, No Apologies, Why Civilization Depends on the Strength of Men. I think that's what sets it apart from the other many books on men's ministry that I have read in the past, and is your vast grasp of literature in supporting your points, which is powerful. So I would say to any man who is in men's ministry in America, he needs to read your book because it adds much more than most men's ministry literature contain. And so that's why this is so good. But now I gotta,
let me jump in here because what I say is founded in nature. And so you can find it in its different forms. And I tried to give as many places as possible. You can find it in its different forms in every human culture, even before the building of cities and civilization. You find it among the American Indian tribes. You can find it in Japan. You find it in India. Find it among the pagan Germans. the Vikings before they became Christian. Everywhere in the world you go, okay? Everywhere in the world, the behavior patterns of men are immediately recognized by everybody. And similarly, the behavior patterns of women immediately recognized by everybody. You have to almost educate yourself into stupidity, not to notice it, right?
Yeah.
So nobody is going to come around and accuse me of and say, well, it's just because you took this narrow focus here. You're focused only on a particular piece of a particular Western civilization. But, to heck with that. Excuse me, but I'm not. I've read a great deal more broadly than that. And this is all founded in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even fallen as it is, it's still founded in nature.
Wow. Well, so what kind of a feedback have you gotten from this book? Because you do push back, particularly now. It's interesting in America because we've had an election, and I first read your book in 2024 early on, and so the election has changed certain attitudes. But what kind of feedback have you gotten from this book, particularly in academic circles?
I don't publish for academic circles when I publish a book like this. One of the things that freed me up early on, I got my promotions very early, right? I mean, as the youngest full professor at this college that I will not name in their history, and I still hold that record. So at that point, okay, I did whatever I pleased, and it was at that time a peculiar place. You could do whatever you pleased, and nobody would say, well, yeah, you're offensive, or you're this, or you're that. I just started to publish what I wanted to write, okay? And I've just continued that, and I don't care what anybody says. I'm not writing for college professors. College professors have plenty of their own problems. If I'm writing for them when I'm translating a work like Augustine's Confessions, which I've just recently translated and annotated, okay? And then I've got some scholars in mind, but my focus has usually been much broader than that. And the people in our colleges and schools, especially, more even than in colleges, people in our schools have bought the whole craziness regarding the sexes. That's men do nothing right. We don't need them. They're violent, and they've done nothing but oppress women for thousands and thousands of years, all of which is just nonsense. But when it's fed to kids, it's poisonous. It's poisonous to girls because then they grow up with a contempt for and distrust of boys and men, and that messes them up. That's why they're all fans of that pop star whose name I've transformed into suit maker, Speedy. You may know who I'm talking about here.
Zach got it. Who is it, Zach?
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
It's all, she reflects their own insecurities masquerading as pride and so forth, but really a suspicion of a resentment against men, okay? So it poisons them that way, and then it poisons the boys. I mean, really, you imagine telling a little kid, your group that ever you come from, right? Who you are, you're just rotten, okay? You're filthy, you're stupid, you're violent, you're nasty, you're a blockhead. Imagine feeding that constantly, implicitly and explicitly to mere kids. It's going to mess them up.
Yeah.
It's going to cause them, it causes them to lose heart, cuts their heart right out. They say, well, okay, I'm not needed for anything. And these girls seem to like school. I don't know why. I'm probably just not good at it. So heck with it all, I'll play video games.
Mm-hmm.
What a thorough waste and a betrayal. it is in fact a form of child abuse.
Yeah, I think your book points that out in a powerful way, that it's grown men can hear some of this nonsense that is said about us, and we can go and write it off. But boys, and
That's different.
that's different.
That's
Yeah.
different. If you say, "Oh well, you're just men, you can't take criticism," I'm not talking about men there. I'm talking about kids. All right, and no kid should be compelled to face this. Not that's abuse.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
imagine if a comparable thing were done constantly to girls. There would be an outcry before it got to day 2,
That's right.
right?
So the subtitle of your book is pretty powerful. Why civilization depends upon the strength of men. I mean, that's so. How do you unpack your message to us through this book?
Okay, so because I've taught what I've taught for so long, I can draw a distinction between culture, which is what human beings have everywhere, right? Wherever you go, wherever you find human beings, until maybe now when we have seemed to lost the whole sense of what a culture is, but wherever you find human beings, you find them passing along very carefully and with reverence, with honor, also with a lot of fun, habits, the wisdom, the stories, the songs they've inherited from their parents, their grandparents, all the way back. Sometimes songs that have come from so far back that by the time you get them 500 years later, your language has changed a little bit, but the songs still remain in the form of the language that was spoken 500 years before. I mean, it's a common thing in that happens a lot, but in any case, all human beings have culture, right? What all human beings have not had was civilization, and there are often very practical reasons why it couldn't pop up in certain places. You didn't have enough people, okay, or the weather wouldn't permit it, okay. You didn't have partly the weather wouldn't permit it. You didn't have building materials, right? I mean, if you're going to build a city, you can't be living beyond the timber line. There's nothing to build with, okay. I mean, in places that are very cold, there's nothing to build with. So anyway, the conditions have to be right for the rise of civilization. You got to have enough people. You got to have a surplus of food that can be stored and won't spoil. So that means you're going to have some form of grain, dry grain. It's got to be produced on a mass scale. Okay. In other words, you've got to have all kinds of things in place. That part is good fortune because you happen to live in an area of the world that will allow for this, because not all areas of the world will. Okay. Some are too hot, some are jungles, some are too cold, the tundra, but basically you live in an area of the world where you can grow grain and store food. And that means that you can assign to other people specialized tasks. Not everybody has to be involved in searching for food all the time. Okay. Some people then are freed up to do specialized things like become carpenters or smiths or wheelwrights, wagon makers, priests, government officials, soldiers, professional soldiers. Then what you get is the building up of a city. And everything that makes the city possible is built on the backs of, and so I'm talking about men here, I'm not talking about women. So I'm not implying anything about women here, but these things are built on the backs of a peculiarly male form of an organization. Call it, if you want, you can call it the platoon. It's a platoon on maneuvers. It's a phalanx of soldiers. It's a team. It's a football team, for example. Now, this is not just a bunch of people getting together to do something in common, okay? So they can just pool, you set 30 people out into the fields, say pick cranberries, and they all pick cranberries and they put them in a big bucket. The team is a different kind of operation. There you have people specialized to do one thing or a certain range of things simultaneous with other people doing other things, and no one thing has any meaning by itself except in connection with the whole. That's a different kind of human structure. Boys do this whenever they're playing touch football. We did, right? And you put on the palm of your hand and you say, okay, you're huddling for the play. Okay, so you hike it to me, and you, Johnny, I want you to go out there, fake to come into the center, and keep going, just keep going. Meantime, I want you two guys over here, and you're going to both go towards the center. I want you to basically make seem as everybody's going to be there. I'm going to pitch you that one long, okay? Just keep running as fast as you can. And all the motions here make sense because they're part of a coordinated whole. It's organic. It's not a collective. It's not individuals, but it's also not a collective. It's a different kind of thing. And you don't have the soul, you don't have an army unless you have that. And to have a city, you're going to need an army. You don't have big agricultural projects without that. You don't have building projects without that. All of that requires the men to get together and to do something that's not at all what they would be doing on their own, or even what they would be doing all in common if they were doing the same thing at the same time. And you see that kind of structure in, for instance, chess, but you see it in the platoon, the team, the work crew, the building crew. Okay, everybody working on different aspects of a whole thing, and it only makes sense as a whole, because as pieces it makes no sense, right? And once I got that into my head, actually, this is not original to me. I picked it up from a couple of anthropologists, guy named Stephen Goldberg and another guy named, believe it or not, Lionel Tiger. But they've written about these things, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's just the organization here. We're not even touching yet the physical strength that's involved.
That's right.
And the necessity, if you're going to thrive, that you've got to have children, and those children have got to be taken care of. And the women have to be taken care of, because your next generation depends not on how many men you have, but on how many women you have who can bear children. So that the heart of this is the woman and the child. But there is no city for them to be at the heart of unless the men build it. So, the sexes don't just run on parallel tracks and then, meet when they feel like it. They are like interlocking parts. We've got that one wrong too. The sexes were never meant to compete against one another.
That's right. That's right. And so your major point is that no civilization has ever come to be without men and without the strength of men, and everything, road building, everything, house building, everything comes with the strength of men. And you do just a masterful job of talking about how boys are going to become men, but women will never become men. They'll never become strong enough.
They shouldn't be.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes the obvious things. I'm fond of the old man of letters, G.K. Chesterton, who wouldn't have minded at all if you called him the apostle of the obvious, because the obvious is the wonder that's right in front of your eyes. And the only reason why you don't see it is because you're too used to it and you take it for granted. Why do men have deep voices? Or you can ask the question the other way around. Why do women not have deep voices? Well, when we hear a woman's voice, we naturally, we don't even think about it. This is part of our animal nature, if nothing else. We naturally think of children. That is, the voice suggests this person needs to be protected and dealt with gently, kindly. Okay, fine. That's right. That's all well and good. That's just the way it ought to be. That the smooth chin also suggests childhood, and it's built into us, right? Although we corrupt it in all kinds of ways, but children have to be protected. Okay. And anybody that bears children has to be protected. I am ashamed to hear when if a pregnant woman gets on a bus and I see her, no man gets up to give her a seat. That's a scandal.
Yeah.
If you look at a man and say, "What kind of man are you?" You know, man, get up. You see the woman there, give her your seat. What's the matter with you? But yeah, that's another thing. But in a lot of the things also, as you say, a lot of things that I've been talking about do require a kind of threshold level of physical strength. If men had only the strength of 15-year-old boys who are stronger than their mothers, we would not have.
Right.
We'd not have these things either. 15-year-old boys aren't strong enough. They're stronger than their mothers.
What powerful.
You know, it's interesting to me to look back at what everybody thought in 1965 we would be doing by this time, like colonizing Mars and all these other amazing things. Well, none of that has happened. Nobody predicted the silicon-based computer. That's the big thing that's changed everything. But otherwise, we have not made enormous advances in technology that are comparable to the advances made from about 1920 to 1965. Okay. I mean, our universities are not, I mean, the kinds of things that would get laughed at, that you would, you turn it in right now to a professor, and I'm part of this. Everybody, our expectations are so low. I mean, everybody sort of falls along with it by force of habit. But if you transported a college student 80 years back to a college back then, they'd think that they had landed, it's just an ordinary college. They'd think they had landed among a bunch of Einsteins, I think. Because I think we're just, it's shielded from us because we're wealthy. And that will last for a while. But otherwise, I mean, what great cultural achievements do we have to look at in any of the arts, other than the computer, even in the sciences? There have been some, but we're just skating along by inertia mainly, and the church has been a part of this, and the church needs to wake up.
So what would you say to Christian men today? What would be an essence of your message to Christian men today, or to men in general?
Okay, couple things. First of all, stop blaming women, all right? The sexes fall and stand together, okay? There's no way you can corrupt one sex without corrupting the other. We know that women right now are a basket case, but men are a basket case, right? I mean, it's predictable that they would be. Both sexes are right now. But your main job as a Christian man, other than to get married and raise a family, is to get yourself in order and get your brothers in order, okay? And then unite with them at work that builds up the common good. Not to complain constantly, and not just to read books, but do things, do tangible things, get things built. right? Our schools are terrible. Build schools then, okay? You can do it, right? Don't let things get in your way. Build, always build, right? But the next thing, I really want to emphasize this, okay? See, so much of what is naturally good, we no longer even enjoy. And that includes what ought to be the natural good of boys and girls falling in love with each other, okay? We need, and here I'm talking not just about the men, I'm talking about men and women, everybody. We need to get those kids together in healthy and wholesome ways. We need to do it regularly. If your group allows for dances, well, then have dances, not once a year. I'm not talking about once a year. I'm talking about all the time, okay? And real dances, not epileptic spasms across a dance floor, but real dances. We actually touch, hold hands, whatever. Teach them, okay? They don't know how to relate to one another as boys and girls. They don't. They've been given all kinds of perverse messages from the great educator, which is the computer screen of the TV. They don't know. And they're missing out on so much of what earlier generations understood as wholesome, delightful, natural, not sinful. And we got to get them married. Okay. If you're in your 30s and you're a guy, what are you waiting for? Okay. Get married already. Okay. Get it done sooner rather than later. Have the kids, get married. Okay. And by the way, this week on, sorry about that. I had to, my leg was going to sleep. This week on our magazine, Word and Song, in honor of Valentine's Day, Deborah and I, my wife and I, run an online magazine that puts out 5 or 6 original entries every week. So we've got a word of the week, hymn of the week, poem of the week, classic film of the week. Okay, a short podcast by me, and a popular song of the week. Sometimes a song is what my wife writes on popular, the classic popular music of the big bands or the crooners or the swing or jazz and things like that, and folk songs. And anyway, the word of the week this week, believe it or not, was romance. And that's what there's precious little of. And I'm not talking about this the sleazy stuff that you see on television. I'm talking about just what my aunts and uncles did, what my mother and father did. They met somebody of the opposite sex, they fell in love. By the age 16, you figured, you got to start practicing at this. And I'm not talking about anything sinful. I'm not talking about anything even approaching sinful. Just the sweetness of enjoying the fact that there's an opposite sex. And that's been robbed from our kids. Anyway, but not at Word and Song. We try to reintroduce people to a lot of the things that they've been robbed of or we've let slide.
Tony, where could people listening get a hold of Word and Song?
Oh, well, it's just Google Word and Song. It will show up immediately. What's that, Deb? Word and Song by Anthony Esolen. Yeah. It's it's kind of what I do for a living these days.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job, yeah. But it's fun though. It's fun.
That's great.
If you ever want to know where the word romance comes from, or whatever the word of the week happens to be, I'll tell you. And so I don't know. We want to have fun and reintroduce people to things that are good and beautiful, and true, and simply enjoyable, rather than carping at politics all the time. We don't do any politics at Word and Song. That's for something else.
Try hard not to.
Well, that sounds like a really interesting thing. I'm sure a lot of our men that listen to this podcast will be interested in that. So, Word and Song, Google it, Anthony Esolen. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Oh gosh, it's been too short. We'll have to do this again sometime.
I know. This is good. This is good. Even your excursus on civilization had so much in it that we don't think about. So the professor came out and that was great.
Well, you know what? Nobody thinks about it because you eat food and you don't think farmers have to grow that. You drive on a road, you don't think a road crew has to lay that down. You live in a house, you don't think of the carpenters. But that kind of thing is a new thing in the world for people to be so far removed from the guys who actually do this work.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone at home for listening to this episode of the Forge Truth podcast. We'd encourage you to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the show so you can always get updated on the latest episode. Tony, thank you again for joining us. And
Thank
Pete,
you.
do you want to lay a challenge down for our men today, Pete?
Yes, I do. I want to encourage those of you particularly who are readers, and a lot of men aren't readers, but a lot of you are, to get No Apologies, Why Civilization Depends on the Strength of Men. It is a work that really stems from your life work, Tony, and really appreciate it. Chapter 1 on strength, Chapter 2 on agency, Chapter 3 on the team, Chapter 4, the family, vision, Chapter 6, the Father in heaven. And it really gives not only historical and cultural and civilizational, but a biblical base for understanding how important you men are. And that's the vision of Forge, building great men who build great men as God defines greatness. And thank you for your commitment to that same effort. So guys, get this book, do some deep thinking. You won't ever be sorry that you did. Thanks again, Tony.
Thanks.